Hi, Phyllis here from southernfrugal.com. We're going to make some white chocolate macadamia cookies. Now, these cookies are just exactly like the chocolate chip cookies, only instead of pecans or walnuts, we're going to use macadamia nuts, and instead of the little chocolate chips, we're going to use white chocolate. Now, I wanted to show you this because I think it's a little confusing. This is not white chocolate. It's not white chocolate at all. What it is all the things that white chocolate has, except instead of using the cocoa butter, they're using palm oil and palm oil kernels. So this is definitely not white chocolate. So we are for sure not using this in the cookies. This is white chocolate, and you can use it to, you can see the picture coats strawberries and fruits. You can use the other for that too, but this actually has cocoa butter in it. So the ingredients are white chocolate, sugar, cocoa butter, milk, non-fat milk, soy emulsifier, artificial and natural flavors. Now, in the other one, if you read the label, it's got the palm oil in it. And a lot of people say they can't tell this is chocolate. I can actually taste a little of the chocolate in this, and that's what you want. So we're going to make the cookies using this. Now, it comes in the packs wrapped individually. Now, when you have an old chocolate bar, and I don't know if you've ever seen an old Hershey bar or Milky Way or something like that, and it's old, and you open it up and you'll see the white stuff kind of on it, and you think, oh, that's probably mold. It's not. It's cocoa butter that's leached out to the surface. So what white chocolate is a byproduct of the cocoa industry, really. And I'll just tell you a real quick story on this. Several years ago, well, more like 25 years ago, we were in San Francisco, and we're staying in a real fancy hotel, and went and saw all the sights. And one night we were just kind of out walking in the area, and well, it wasn't night, it was probably 5 or 6 o'clock, and there was a little cookie store there. So of course I'm always in for sweets, so I asked my husband, I said, can we go in there and see what they've got? Let's get some cookies. And all the cookies were super homemade. It was just a little bitty kind of hole in the wall. And the cookies that they had, one of them was white chocolate macadamia cookies. So I said, well, we're going to try those. So I got about 4 of them. And we went back to the hotel, and I was eating them, and they were delicious. They were just so good. Now, we had gotten the chocolate chip too. So I told my husband, I said, boy, I'm going to see if I can't figure out how to make these. It seems just like chocolate chip cookies, except for this white chocolate that's in them, and the macadamia nuts. Now, that's the first time I'd ever had a macadamia nut, and I thought they were just very delicious. So when we got back to South Carolina, I started shopping around, and lo and behold, Food Line that was open, and they've since closed in our area, but they were open then. And in the basket, in a big basket that sat on the floor in the baking aisle, there were these big blocks of white chocolate. That's what it said, white chocolate. And they were weighing them out and wrapping them up just like you would meat, and putting a little tag on them and the weight and then the price. So I went ahead and bought one, and then I found the macadamia nuts in a jar about that tall. I don't remember how many ounces it was, but they were $7.99. And I said, well, I'm just going to get them anyway because those cookies were so good. And sure enough, when I used the same recipe as the chocolate chip cookies and just used the white chocolate and the macadamia nuts, they turned out exactly the same. So you could say I've been making these for about 25 years now. My husband has always wanted me to make them because he just super loves them. So anyway, he's been talking about it ever since I started videoing different recipes, which was last August. This is the following July. He's at least once a week, he says, why don't you make some of those cookies? Well, part of the reason was I couldn't find this. Now, I don't know when bakers came out with this white chocolate, but I did try several years ago making them with these. Now, I remember, I think, unless I'm mistaken, that the Nestle company called these white chocolate, but they aren't anything white chocolate to do with this, okay? And I'm not saying these aren't good, but not for this recipe. So, anyway, that's enough of that story. I wanted to show you how you'll have to do these chocolate pieces. Now, I've already got one chopped up. What you have to do is take them out of the wrapper. Now, first I want to show you the difference between the two. That's why I opened that package. Let me get some of those out. Can you see the difference in the color? I hope it shows up on the camera. These are much whiter than this. White chocolate needs to look sort of a cream tan color, almost a really super light gold color. That's how you know it's white chocolate. Okay, so to chop these up, let me move in close. What you'll need to do, it's going to come like that, and I think you get 6 of these squares in this box, and you do need all of them for this recipe. Take a serrated knife that's very thin. You don't want to use one of those great big chopping knives. You want to use a very thin knife. Just cut it down the middle, break the 2 in half, and then you want to just slice it down thin. Alright, now after you do that, after you get it sliced, it's going to break into several little pieces. So you can just kind of break it in half or thirds. And that's what you're looking for the cookies, okay? So I'm going to go ahead now and chop all these other little blocks. And I want to show you the nuts before we break off from that. These were not available 25 years ago, but they are now. Each one of these little packs, I think, costs $2.50, and for these cookies, you'll need 2 of them. 2 packs. You can get them in Walmart. Now, before, when I bought them in the little jar, they were $7.98, and I don't remember the ounces, but anyway, what you'll need is 1 cup, so that's going to take 2 packs. Now, for those of you who have never seen this kind of nut before, and by the way, I think these are grown like in Hawaii or somewhere. And when I bought them in the jar, they were together. You know, like they were break apart, kind of like split peas do, into 2 halves. So, I'm going to eat that one. Just as good as I remember. Okay. So, and you can also, when you get these, just put them, if you want to keep them for a while, you can just put them in the freezer and they'll keep very well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and chop up my little white chocolate, and we'll be back and put this all together. Okay, we have cut up all the chocolate, and I've mixed the macadamia nuts with it, and we're going to set that aside, and we're ready to get our cookies together. Alright, 1 cup of softened butter. Now, I put this in the microwave for just a few seconds, and then I kind of broke it up with a whisk. So to this 1 cup of softened butter, you want to add 3/4 a cup of white sugar, 3/4 of a cup of light brown sugar. I'm just going to kind of mix that in with the whisk to start out with. Get the lumps all broken up. And to this, you're going to add 2 eggs. I'm just going to put both of them in at the same time. 1 teaspoon of salt. Put that right in. And 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And I think that's about all that's left in this little bottle. So I'm just going to pour it in. If it was a little more, that would be okay. Alright, now we're just going to mix those eggs, break them up a little bit, and get it all mixed in with a whisk. And you could use an electric mixer at this point if you wanted to. I just think the whisk is easier, plus it's just one little item to wash. Alright, so mix it up pretty good. break up any little lumps of that brown sugar that you see. And just cream it all together, really. Okay, that's probably about good enough. There's another little lump. White sugar there. Okay. Now you're through with the whisk. You won't be able to really use that anymore. Now you're going to add 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, and this is a 2-cup measure. I just added another 1/4 cup to the top of it. So you're going to dump that in, and I usually do about half of it and work it in with a spatula. Just get it started. Okay. Now I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Now this is not baking powder, it's baking soda. Let me show you that. Same kind you put in your refrigerator to make it smell good. Baking soda. And just sprinkle that all around. And then mix that all in. I'm just going to go ahead and dump the rest of my flour in. This is going to make a really stiff cookie batter. Okay, we've got a lot of that in now. Now it's not totally incorporated, but I'm going to go ahead and dump my white chocolate and macadamia nuts in there because that will actually help to get it mixed in thoroughly. So I'm just going to dump those in and just start using my spatula to press everything and get those nuts and the little chocolate chips thoroughly incorporated in there. And of course you see that we're mixing the rest of the flour in at the same time. You just really have to kind of mix it around and mash it to get it mixed. And there's a little piece of brown sugar. Just gonna, and that brown sugar is too hard to even mash up, so I'll take that out. Now, if I hadn't found that little piece, it'd be okay because it would certainly melt in the oven. All right. All right, this is pretty well mixed in now. Now, you could go ahead right now and start baking your cookies, but if you just go ahead and put it in the refrigerator for 30 minutes or so, you'll find it a lot easier to load the cookies up on the cookie sheets. So I'm going to chill this for about 30 minutes and we'll be back. If I can find a finger to cut the camera off. There we go. Alrighty, we have let our cookie dough somewhat cool. Now I'll tell you a little trick I use. I actually put this in the freezer because my freezer is one of those frost free, so it has a little fan and they cool really fast. Now you can't forget them because I've done that and just left them in there and the whole thing froze. But what I do is put them in there for about 15 minutes and then just take my spatula and go in there and, you know, turn the batter over, and that way it gets cooled faster. Now I'm going to try to use this again. I've tried this on other cookies and I never am able to make this work. I even tried greasing the little miniature ice cream scoop, but we're going to try it one more time. So now I make mine, this little ice cream scoop holds 1 tablespoon. So I make mine a heaping tablespoon because I really like a bigger cookie. So I'm going to put them on this sheet, and that's going to probably hold about 12 cookies. And this somewhat works. Now if your cookies run together, you can just take a little spatula while they're still warm and, you know, scoot them apart a little bit. But I'm going to see if I can't get 12. I might only be able to get 10 on this sheet. And also, you want to preheat your oven to 375 degrees, and these are going to need to cook for about 9 minutes, or depending on your oven, you might need to cook them for 11 minutes. But you wouldn't want to cook them any more than that, because you want them to be sort of chewy on the inside and a little crispy on the outside. Okay. I actually only got 8 on this cookie sheet. Now, I'm just going to sit those aside and go ahead and put more cookies on this sheet, because as soon as those get done, I'm going to put these right straight in. And also I'm going to put my cookie dough batter back in the refrigerator while I'm waiting. Now, if you have a big oven, you could probably cook 2 at one time, which would be good. I see it's already getting too hard to get these out of the little scoop. Another little tip I might add is that on the macadamia nuts, I really do think that the kind you get in a little vacuum packed jar are better than these that you get in the pack. You know, the little cellophane pack. But I think that the ones in the jars are more expensive. But I do think they're better. And I haven't looked this up, but I think I remember looking it up before. And I remember that the macadamia nuts, I believe, are grown in Hawaii. And that might be why they cost so much. But you can also make these cookies with using pecans or walnuts, and I've done that before, and they're really just as good. But I guess then you couldn't call them white chocolate macadamia cookies. But anyway, all right, I'm going to go ahead and get these in the oven, 375 degrees for 9 to 11 minutes, and we'll be back. Okay, the first batch of cookies are done. Now, what you want to do is leave them sitting on the cookie sheet for about 2 minutes. Then you want to transfer them to just a little wire rack. But what actually happens, I think they cook a little bit more just sitting on the hot cookie sheet. So leave them 2 minutes, then just transfer them to the a little rack to cool. All right, when I finish baking all these, we'll be back. Okay, this is our last pan of cookies, and I wanted to show you, I did have 3 of them that cooked together. While they're still on the cookie sheet and still warm, you just put your spatula in there and kind of push them apart. All right, so I'm ready to take up the last of the cookies. And again, you do want to leave them sitting on the cookie sheet for a good 2 minutes, and they will finish cooking a little more. Now, these cookies do just exactly like the regular chocolate chip cookies do, in that they puff way up, then they fall back. And that's what makes them, you know, chewy on the inside, or really moist, and then a little crispy on the outside. Okay, we're going to have one right now. There's what it looks like. See how it's not like crispy. Of course, you don't really want them crispy. It's crispy around the edges and on the bottom, and on the inside it's very moist. Okay, a few little tips. If you use parchment paper on your cookie sheet, that works a lot better. Now, I ran out of parchment paper, so I just had to use the regular cookie sheet. This is no. This is yes, okay? Now, there's probably many other brands of white chocolate, but just please make sure it says white chocolate, and then turn it around and read the label, because in order for it to be called white chocolate, it's really gonna have to have cocoa butter in it. Otherwise, it's really not white chocolate. And that's what this is, palm oil, excuse me, and palm kernels. So you don't want that. I mean, I think you can use this for other things, but not for this particular cookie. Now, I have made these before with walnuts. I've also made them before with pecans. They're just as good. And I would strongly recommend, if you can find the macadamia nuts, if that's what you want to use, in the jar, that you get the kind that are in the vacuum pack jar. And I would say that I got probably 3 dozen cookies, because of course I made mine bigger than what the recipe calls for, because the recipe says you can get 5 dozen out of this recipe. And I'll be honest, I've never gotten 5 dozen. It's always less because I make the cookie bigger. Anyway, I sure hope you'll try these. I know you'll like them. Now, if you're not a really big chocolate fan, you will love these cookies, okay? Because they really don't have that chocolate taste. Now, I can taste it a little bit, but most people wouldn't be able to taste it. All right. See you next time.